Hello and welcome back to the Leadership Circle. It's Tuesday evening. We're back doing another live here. I've got Deana and JR coming through to come in and sprinkle some love and some light and some aloha on our Tuesday evenings. It's great to see you guys. Always a pleasure. And it's good to have all of you, whoever might be watching this on live or replay, joining in, chiming in, commenting. We welcome you. So we're back. It's the Leadership Circle each and every Tuesday. And today we're going to talk about asking for support. We thought there's definitely quite a conversation that we could probably grow from here with just, what we experience when asking for support, if we do, if we don't, what it means. And so I'm going to just toss it over to one of you two beautiful people and kind of let you roll and flow as I set myself up. But as always, it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be here with the both of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Always a pleasure to be here with the two of you and everyone out there in Facebook land. So yeah, asking for support. That's our topic today. What you got, JR?
Well, Kenny Morikawa texted me the other day and he's all, I did an unreasonable request, and he got a good, someone said yes. And so what an unreasonable request, Bill Allen always talks about, one of my mentors and people I look up to, is what are the questions that we aren't asking that if we did ask would change our lives and possibly our families' lives forever. And if the only downside is they could say no, there's no real reason not to ask it. And so his thing is unreasonable requests. And you can even frame it where, hey, I got an unreasonable request. And then someone's already expecting a big ask, you know what I mean? But it's just, what are the questions we're not asking? And how many of us have to do it alone? So that's why I think today's topic is a pretty good one.
I like it. I think about it a lot of times and it's like, okay, the things we're not asking or the questions we're not asking. And did you just say like the worst that could happen is they'll say no? And well, it was a no before we asked, right? Like there was no chance of us getting that support or being able to have whatever it is we wanted without asking. So at least there's a 50-50 chance. And more often than not, it's even better than 50-50 in our favor.
I'm going to dive in on this and kind of what comes up for me when I think about asking for support is, number one, and I know this is baloney that goes on in my brain, but it's a sign of weakness. And I know it's so not true, but the first thing that comes up for me is like, a few things that come up for me is if I ask for support, like it's because I'm not capable or something that I can't do, because I feel like in my upbringing, what I've experienced is if it needs to be done, I'm going to do it. And that's just the cloth I'm cut from. If it's going to be done, I got it and I'll handle it. But with that said, it's also a huge take when I don't allow other people the opportunity to support, because there's so many people in my circle, in my life that want to help. And if I don't give them the opportunity or even ask, then really what I'm doing is I'm taking. And it just, I go from that sign of weakness and that it means nothing until I attach meaning to it. However, what I attach to it is like, well, it could be that I'm not capable, or I might not get it done, or I might not get done right. And so you guys experience any of that? Like what comes up for you when you ask for support? Is it, do you have feelings like that come up? Or
I mean, I would say that yes, they used to, and they still do. However, learning that thing that you said, right, where it's like, okay, are we taking from others the opportunity to help? Like that was game changer when I first got exposed to that concept, because someone asked, it's like, okay, when someone asks, I was asked, when someone asks you for help, Deana, like, what's your feeling? Like, do you like helping people? Where's your energy when you're asked for support? And it's like, of course, I love helping others. And I love, whatever I can do, however way I can be of service, or, if they ask for a favor or any help, I'm happy to help. And it's like, well, why would you take that happiness away from someone else? And it was like, oh, you mean they have a chance to feel that good too when they help me? And so sitting with that, and then and just really, really sitting with that. And it's like, okay, it shifted the energy that came from asking for support. But I still struggle. Sometimes I don't reach out as often as I'd like to. Definitely more, but not as often as I can. JR, what about you?
I struggle with that. I can really align with what you said, Matt. It comes down to, on many reasons, it comes from control for me. And I have learned that having to be an extreme controller is, like almost like a sign of trauma as a kid. It's a trauma response. And so as I've worked on it, I've been able to release the control. But for me, if someone helped me, then I owed them something. Or even more arrogantly, they might want to contribute and have an opinion on it. You know what I mean? If I'm going to be, I don't normally say that out loud, especially not on camera, but there's a bit of that. No, I know what I'm talking about. Oh, no one else will know it. I have to do it my way because no one else is good enough. Obviously I know others are good enough, but when I'm in my moment, it's like, no one can do this but me. It's just like, and then if they were to help me, then they could ask me for help, or I'd owe them something. Or then I couldn't at the end say I did this, because then I didn't do it because they helped. And so a lot of that is ego stuff. So it's one of the things I struggle with, but I'm getting better at it. So
I relate. I think a lot of what's being shared. So with that, JR, if I don't do it, it's not going to be done right. That comes up for me, right? And so then I think from a root or somewhere in my upbringing, disappointment has come up for me where I've been let down. And if I ask somebody for support and they don't support me the way that I want them to, or if it doesn't get the job or the support doesn't get done the way that I wanted it to, then there's room for disappointment, which triggers me or brings up, the feeling of being let down. And so I think that you can relate, or based on what I'm hearing, that you somewhat relate to this. And I find it interesting because I know that there's trauma, or that there's experiences that I've had between 0 and today that absolutely influenced the decision-making that I do. And unconsciously, I don't ask for support because that's somewhere behind. It's about getting disappointed or about being let down and not wanting to feel that. And so I'm clear that is part of why it's difficult for me to ask for support and why I prefer not to, the fear of disappointment. And, back to what I said a moment ago, it's like the biggest taker of all is one who doesn't allow somebody else to give. And when I was shared with that concept from several people and leaders and mentors that we all know, that hit me like a ton of bricks. It's like I'm taking by not allowing other people to contribute, because it's like, no, I got it, bro. No, I got it. I'm cool. Thank you. Or how can I help? And I get those questions often. And I'm like, well, I don't even know where to start, because again, in my head, and I don't even know that I'm doing it, but if I put somebody else if I welcome somebody else in there for that, then I have it in my head already that I'm going to be disappointed. And I don't like the feeling of being disappointed or betrayed or let down or whatever. So, I'm practicing.
I'm resonating a little bit with what you're saying in terms of like, okay, being disappointed, or sometimes even just the whole, they're not going to do it right. They're not going to do it the right way. And then I'm going to have to go back and do it again. And then it's just quicker to just get it done first, right? That first time. But I think hearing you share that, Matt, I'm like, okay, maybe a piece of it. Now I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, maybe a piece of it is removing that disappointment piece, but also lowering expectations of what, of what things, like what matters more in that moment. And what's specifically coming to mind is sometimes like when my nephews are over and they're just like, Deana, can we help with something? And a lot of times it's like, I'm prepping things and I've got this whole system and I got it all covered. And it's not, I used to be like, no, it's okay, I'm good. And then last time they were over, I kind of just paused and I was just like, yes, please do, this one thing, removing the expectation, even if I'm going to go back later, like if whatever it was, but in that moment to have them feel like they are contributing and that they are helping and to feel good about it. And for me to, release some of that energy with how it needs to turn out, because it's like, seeing them feel that confident in that moment is worth way more than, it being done right.
What for
Good.
me in my company, Matt, were you going to say something?
No, I'm replying. That's really good, Deana. Thank you for sharing that. JR, please.
In my company, I tried to control everything and no one could do anything. So the leadership muscles that on the team were all stipend because no one was good enough to do it. And, I was such a control freak that, they weren't even given the freedom to make mistakes, And so, I don't know, a year ago, 9 months ago, I kind of just had enough and I broke and I just surrendered. I mentioned it a few times. And so the leadership on my team is so good right now. Everyone's just doing it. And like all these things that I used to try and do and I wouldn't do it good enough. And these guys are like taking ownership and they've actually had some input on what kind of jobs we want. For so long, the jobs we do are the ones we got. And, they're like, we should stagger these. I'm like, I say yes when they come in. And now it's more specific as far as what the jobs we want, specific types of home renovations that the whole team has bought into. So now it's their idea. And so it's just easier now to allow them to do it. And for me my life is a lot freer now, for so long, I just control everything. I strangle it, my way isn't the right way. It is a way.
A way. Yes. Yes. And what's possible when we sort of allow things. I mean, if we keep doing what we're doing, we're always going to get the results that we've gotten. So especially, I mean, in business and in personal life, but still it's like holding that space and allowing for others to chime in with other creative ideas. Like that's where that synergy part comes up. And that's where it's, wow, we never thought of that. And it's like, well, when we take down the guards and it's like, okay, all ideas welcome, what's possible?
Yeah, I think that alone we sink, together we sail when it comes to teamwork and it comes to leadership within an organization, a company, a family, whatever dynamic we're talking about, that, having and receiving support and providing support and allowing support to come in is definitely makes the unit stronger, because I don't know what I don't know and I'm not able to see what I am not able to see. There's people out there that have brilliant ideas, and there's great leadership within my organization, within my company, that when people step up and people do their thing. And I think that it still is a stigma that I experience, that there's times where it's like, no, I got to do it. And I had a friend over for dinner, my neighbor in my old neighborhood. I'm like, dude, you got to come over and have dinner, because that's just how we roll. So I had a guest over on Sunday. He had came over to have dinner, and he's like, dude, I feel bad. I'm sitting here standing around and you're cooking and cleaning, and my girlfriend and my mom, they're all here, and we're preparing dinner. And I'm like, you know what, the best way, I'm inviting a guest over, I want you to relax, chill, have a seat, you can play with my daughter, whatever. But Deana, you just had a good share that made me realize too that, in that situation, there was a take. Like that would have been an opportunity for me to be like, yeah, come on through. You can do this or that, because he wanted to contribute. And I may have been taking that from him. But back to my original point here, I wanted to comment on that, because I thanked you. Alone we sink, together we sail. Together, every leader within the organization working together makes that unit stronger. And so it's a good point, JR, to your comment of control, right? It's such a huge factor in what my everyday looks like. Of like, there's leaders within the organization that handle things and do it very well, and we wouldn't be where we are if it weren't for those leaders that do their job so well. And I've got my strengths and they've got theirs, and so delegating 100%, I'm in agreement with that, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that it's difficult for me to receive or ask for support. It's not an easy thing to experience for myself.
So what could be possible? Because I get that part, right? It's like, okay, well, we want to go help. And maybe if somebody offers to help, it's a little bit different than us doing the ask. right? Like there's a part where like, okay, somebody could offer support, and maybe it's easier at times for us to receive and accept support when it's being offered versus what happens when, you know, how can we ask for support? How can we notice that there are opportunities for us to ask people for support and throw it out there?
If JR, you're on mute.
There's airplanes in the background. That's I muted myself. What comes to mind for me is this, like, I asked this guy Mark Tajuri to mentor me, and it was kind of a risk, and I was uncomfortable. I didn't even know him that well, but you know, he's a brilliant man, and I was just like, you know, I'm gonna ask him. You know, what's the worst that can happen? And you know, and then it went on to a really nice, beautiful relationship that lasted months, and you know, and it made me think of, I have some people I mentor that I love talking to. I love helping people. And, you know, I was afraid to ask this man for some support and, you know, camaraderie and guidance. But really, he has as much fun in there as I do. And he's growing as much as me because he's, you know, here to teach. And he has all this knowledge and he's looking for a motivated, you know, student. And so by asking for support, and even if it's for these people you look up to, if you don't have anyone you look up to, go find some people you look up to and go ask them, you know, ask them for some advice, pick their brain. You know, what would you do in this situation? You know, and there's so much information out there that I know for myself, I just had to do it by myself for so long, you know, so.
That brings up a point. To be the lowest man on the totem pole is one of my friends, Fred, would always say. It's like, you want to be the lowest man on the totem pole, because if you're the smartest man in the room, like there's no room to grow. There's no room to learn from that. Like you want to be the, for a lack of better words, not the smartest person in the room, right? Like that would be the kind room to be in. That would be the smart room to be in, is where we have, but oftentimes too, don't you think that it's kind of like comfort, you know, and you go into a room and you can be around people where you're like, okay, I know, looking around the room, I'm equal to, right around the stature, whatever, you know, role they play, whatever. So when's the last time, anyway, that's a question. When's the last time you were in the room, like with Mark, you were like, yo, you sought support and spend time with him, JR. And yeah, I've had the privilege to be able to spend some time with him recently. And I'm very, very, very grateful for that time. Brilliant, man. But you were willing to ask. So Deana, back to what I believe you were sharing, is asking for support versus or receiving support. When somebody asks you, hey, can I support you? I want to offer support. And that's a receiving support, right? And then there's the other version of me asking so-and-so for support.
And it still entails the asking and receiving. It's just one of them is being offered. So sometimes I find myself like it's easier for me to, when someone comes to offer support, for me to accept it. It's a little bit more challenging for me to go out there and actually verbalize a need for support.
Yeah. Yeah, the difference. I'm identifying the difference between the two, which is a great point.
And
I
so
still
then,
think,
yeah, go ahead.
just, you know, I think the same stuff comes up for me personally, right? Even if it's me opening my mouth or me, oh, I got it, you know, denying. So
You got me thinking, Matt. And I use the word dumbest man in the room. I like.
I was gonna say that, but I was being
I know, and it was polite, and you said it the nice way, and I'll say it the way I say it, and then, you know. Yeah. But that's I like to be the dumbest man in the room too. And for a while, when I, you know, years ago, when I take all these classes, Marshall Thurber classes, you know, I was a construction dude, and there's all these millionaires and this and that, and I was the dumbest man in the room for a long time, and I haven't been the dumbest man in the room for a little while. Maybe in this room, but not very many other rooms. And so it's, for me, it's like, I got to get in some smart rooms. And that's one of the things that I like traveling. I like being in these rooms. I like following teachers and finding new teachers. And so staying still is, you know, I haven't been able to do that, but I'm ready to be the dumbest man in the room again. You know, I guess I am with my kids. When I'm playing with them, I get to be the dumbest man in the room.
But that's all opportunities for growth, right? Like that's where we grow. If we already know everything and our box is not expanding, I mean, that's one of the things that's what keeps us like, because then the more we learn, the more we realize how much more there is to still learn in other aspects or even in the same subject or topic. And so that's a piece I think that if we can value and really hone in on the beauty of that growth mindset, is that there is the potential, there's opportunity in everything. Like we never get there. Like, I don't think we ever, like, when we think we've arrived, it's kind of like, okay, where exactly were you going? Because ultimate destination, you don't like just get there and just sit there and be like, okay, I'm there. There's always something more. And so reframing, like, you know, whether it's the not so smartest person in the room, it's just that's a fertile land, right? Fertile soil for new things to grow.
We were talking about this a couple months ago, and I don't know how far back it was, but one of my favorite conversations was with a friend who we were talking about an opportunity to go and attend a personal development conference or seminar. And the person made a comment and said, well, I don't need to do that. I already know. And it's like, ding, 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 ding. That was the immediate, that was like, that's all the reason to go, because you think we fall into that mindset, or we think we do now. And it's, once you've gotten there, there's no room for anything. And JR was talking about complacency. There's no stability. It's either growth or decay. If I'm not in a smart room, then I'm probably not in growth. I'm decaying. All right. So it's either growth or decay. And if I'm not putting myself in these podcasts with you guys and having intelligent conversations or thought-provoking conversations, it's like, these are the places that I prefer to be most, where I'm actually challenged. My thoughts are challenged. My feelings are raw and real, and I can actually just be about it, right? But complacency stinks, for a nice way to put it. There's nothing good that comes from complacency.
No, and what you're saying, Deana, did you have something before I go into
go for it?
Like what Cortland said, it is what you know and what you act on. You know, what you act on is more important than what you know. I'm sure I didn't say it properly, but it's not even about the knowing. It's how much stuff do we know that we're not doing, and it's the discipline to do what we need to do. You know, so it's not always about the knowing, because I know all kinds of things that are good for me that I'm not doing. You know, I know all kinds of stuff that would benefit. That, you know what I mean? But it's like, do I have the discipline to, well, you know, and I think to get the discipline, we need the why. You know, we got to find that why. But, you know, it's not, we may know, it's just, do we have the discipline to actually do it?
Yeah. Smart people that we are been a huge benefit or add value, you know, and it's because we said yes to those things 15, 10 years ago, whatever, where, you know, we were able to interact and create friendship and bonds with some really incredible people, from names like Mark or Marshall or Cortland or Fred. I mean, these are all people that prior to my journey, personal development journey, like those kind of people I didn't have in my life, you know. I mean, all brilliant people that I look up to, and all brilliant people that I've learned a lot from and continue to learn a lot from. But to know about it and to do something are definitely two different things. So good old support.
And it starts with saying yes to ourselves. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what came up when you said, you know, when we started 10 to 15 years, whatever, however long ago we started on this journey, you know, we said yes to the journey, but we said yes to ourselves first on the journey, in that belief. Mm-hmm. So thank you both for saying yes to yourselves and to that journey.
That, you know, I know there's a topic that's going to be, you're very welcome, and thank you, Deana. I say yes and thank myself so many times for that just that decision on the trajectory of my life changed completely in a moment of a decision that forever I would be grateful for that step I chose to take. The conversation that I know we've been talking about having, which we will, I think it deserves a good session on, but is procession. And I won't go too far down that because that's something I want to hold sacred to a full combo. But that yes, that took place 15 years ago for me, changed the trajectory of my life forever. The people that I have in my life, the decisions, the businesses, the relationships, the fact that my daughter's a direct result of that yes that I said. And we'll save majority of this for another time. But that's why it's important to, I don't know, say yes to support, right? Because somebody saw something in me back 15, it was longer than that. But there was a family, the Luck family, that said, you got to check this thing out. And it was a 3-day personal development class. And I was like, I don't need that. I was that guy that was like, I already know. There's no room for me. Like I can. Anyway, so pardon me, I'm going to go into story for a second. And I said no, I said no, and I said no. And it was years, 5-6 years of no's, because I was so young and immature and had all my stuff figured out and didn't need help from anybody, nor did I need support, right? And then finally there was a moment where I decided I was willing to go. I think it was because I didn't have to receive support. However, I chose it. And it was from that moment forward that life shot off in a different direction. And it will never be the same since then. So by receiving support or by taking action, the result is this. The three of us on this podcast wouldn't even be here. You know?
So true.
So what areas are we saying no to support that we don't have any idea that we are building walls up so that newness is not, we're not able to attract it, or it cannot grow. It cannot come to you when we're in a place of no. So I'm listening to my own words right now, guys. The more I say no to support, the more I'm building walls for the newness to come. Go ahead.
And anything you're working on right now that you're struggling with, that, myself, I'm talking to myself now too, is like, we can ask other people for help. If we're stuck, it feels good to help people. I think you two know it feels good. I think most people know it feels good to help people.
Yeah.
And so by asking for support, you're actually allowing other people to feel good. They might say no and then don't take it personally. They might be busy. Who knows what's on their mind? Don't be crushed if they say no. They might say no and you don't know why, but don't let it stop you from asking for help. And more than likely they will say yes.
Well, and what comes to mind with that, JR, is like, even if they do say no, it doesn't mean that we aren't able to go elsewhere and ask elsewhere. And maybe that was the plan. Maybe that's even part of the plan. They had to say no so we could go ask someone else who would say yes. And then the trajectory all changes from there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it has this way of like neutralizing the energy, right? We're not charged over like, oh no, they said no. Even trusting that no is a gift.
No is not always a permanent no. It's a not yet, and it's a nudge in the direction of where we're supposed to be going to. Go ahead, JR. You were in drop some.
Well, it's just like, I would think about whatever we do, like each of us, we're not what we do for a living, but a lot of us really attached to what we do for a living. And, how many people we could find in our industries, or if it's not an industry, in our interests, that have so much knowledge that if we were to seek them out and ask for support, even if it's as simple, like with contractors, I got everyone I used to work for, I call, how do I do this? What would you do? And I'll ask 5 different people the same question, because there's 5 million different ways to do everything. But just having people in your area of interest or industry to call and ask for help. I mean, and how many people are actually doing that? For a long time, I would have felt like they would make fun of me, or I'm supposed to know better. I'm the contractor. How am I supposed to be? I need to know this stuff. Where it's like, no, I don't need to know. I need to know where to get answers. That's what I need to know.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, that 3-letter word ego gets in the way of picking up that phone and saying, hey, I could use a hand, or, hey, how would you approach this, right? For me, that's what comes up when I hear you talking, Jared. It's like, okay, so what is it that's stopping me when a support request is being thought about in my mind? It's like, oh no, I'm not able to do that. I should have all my stuff together. I don't need to, what are they going to think, right? They think I have it together, and I need to ask them a question. Now my stock drops a little bit. Like, what BS is that,
I
right?
can relate to that one.
Yeah.
Don't know I'm not awesome if I ask for help.
Yeah.
Wow, am I hearing a challenge of like we're gonna be on a we're gonna find at least one thing to ask for help every day for the next week?
That sounds like a great idea, Coach.
I'll do that. I'll come up to that. Yeah, ask for help.
Yeah, and it's in anything, just getting in the habit of asking. Because yes, we're also telling the universe what it is that we want when we're asking for it. We're saying it out loud at some point in that transmission from us to another person for that request, and so we get to hear what we want too.
I'm gonna pause. No, you go. I'm gonna take it.
Part of me thinks that it causes, there's an energy that it creates, and there's a ripple effect that it creates. And so when I'm giving or receiving support, and I'm feeling what it feels like to receive support, and I'm thinking about the support that I'm receiving and how great it is because everything's done the way, and it's done with beauty, and it's done with like a big heart. It's like that allows that person to love and give. And guess what? When that love gives, that love grows, right? Because then I'm a recipient of this love, and it's like, okay, now what do I get to do with this? It's mine to keep, it's mine to share. So I get to go past that love and that heart moving forward. So I think that it has a good ripple effect too, allowing others to support and receiving the support.
I just got a visual of like a relay race.
Yeah.
Pass the baton. Okay, they just supported me and they run to the next station. Go find a way to help someone else, and then they run and keep passing that. Definitely ripple effect.
It's also with the support. It's like build your team. That just kind of popped in my head. It's like where I live, I got this kind of group. We're all kind of helping each other. Nothing's based on money. You know what I mean? Someone just earlier today needed scaffolding. And I'm like, yeah, I have scaffolding, but then my knee was sore and I was looking for this Russian comfrey. It's a type of plant I wanted to put around my knee to heal. And he's like, oh, I found some comfrey. And, like people are just showing up, and it's like this magical little symbiotic relationship that everyone's just kind of working together. And I was thinking about maybe this is where the future will go. It's like you build your team and you work. Not everyone needs to know how to make money. If you got one person that's good at making money on your team, let that person make money. You're really good at making music. Okay, so you're making music. What are you? You're great at food. All right, what are you? You're right with the kids. And that's the community in the sense of a pure community, without capitalism has beautiful things to it, but there's things wrong with it, just like every other ism. But if we make our own team, or you run your family like that, like the parents are good at providing, well, the kids are good at teaching us how to be, real. We're all doing what we're good at. And so it's just like, yeah, get a team, build your team, and ask for support. It's and work together and build some synergy. That's what's cool.
That's exciting. You got me vibed up on that one.
Well, so this is where I was going to go. And so when we're asking for support, it doesn't always have to be humans, right? It can be in prayer. You can ask source for support, whether you believe in angels or guardians or whatever your words for the different stuff out there, you can ask them for support. And that's one of the things I've been learning recently. As my knee is screwed up and the surgeons want to cut me. And I'm not saying I won't do surgery, but I'm going to explore other things first. And I've been praying and asking for support. And the other night I did an exercise where I asked the angels for help. And I put my hands out to kind of feel them in my hands and just trust. And I didn't have to have a solution. And I just asked them very vulnerably for support and help with finding solutions for my knee. I don't want to limp. I don't want to limp. I mean, I'm an active person. It's big. I need my knee fixed. It needs to be fixed. So I'm asking the angels, I'm asking God, I'm praying for answers. And I and that exercise, I felt the angels in my hand, and I put it over my heart and just said, thank you. I trust that you'll figure it out. And then just magically people are showing up with bags of this plant medicine, you know, like the comfort I'm talking about. And then other people who know about stretching, someone told me to get an inversion table. So I got the inversion table, and everyone's showing up to teach me how. You know, I even got someone telling me to make bone broth, because bone broth rebuilds collagen, and collagen's how my whatever in my knee can regrow. It can regrow cartilage. That's what it is. So it's regrowing cartilage, and one of the ways to regrow cartilage is bone broth. So anyways, all these solutions are showing up for ways, and it's just for me asking for support from source, from spirit, from angels. So it doesn't always have to be a person. You know, there's a lot going on that we don't see and talk about. You know,
it's interesting because I don't have a problem asking for support from source. I like, you know, I got that I feel confident in. But when it comes to from support elsewhere, it's different for me with feelings. That's cool, JR. And so there you go. That's how, you know, it can be as simple as asking the angels or asking God, universe, source, whatever, for support, and what comes up. Then when it shows up, it's about being like, oh, of course, I'd love for support. I'd love for that help, or the bone, the broth, or the, you know, that's for me. Go ahead, Deana.
No, and like, and absolutely. And even those people that are coming along the way, maybe they're the answer, like source is sending them to us to be able to like to get that support. And maybe it does require, like, maybe sometimes it'll require a question, maybe sometimes it's just an offering. But in both cases, it's, if we look at it, that it's all connected, and maybe they are, you know, crossing paths with us in that moment, an opportunity to ask, that is, you know, God, source, whoever, you know, sent them in our way as an answer to our prayer.
absolutely.
Yeah, and when we receive it, it allows the intertwine to continue to flow in the way that it's intended to flow, right? So I'm building up walls when that support request goes out there, and then support shows up, and I'm like, oh, I got it. I don't need anything. I can do it on my own, you know? All I'm doing is blocking the flow from continuing to roll. Yeah, and then when we receive it, you got an echo there. So that's a great, I can appreciate that context or framing it that way right now, because it's been coming up for me, just flowing, and that makes sense. That makes sense for me. Can you hear me okay, guys? There was an echo, weird echo. Okay, cool.
No, you're good.
Well, it's always fun wherever these conversations go, you know?
That's the beauty of it, is they go wherever they are needed, wherever they feel. I think that's divinely guided.
Mm-hmm. Divinely guided. I appreciate that. So go ahead.
I'm just gonna encourage anyone listening to, you know, if there's something you really want and you're afraid to ask for it, or there's someone that you think could help you, and you know, if you just build some courage and ask for help, you know, again, I'll repeat it. How many questions are we not asking that if we did ask would change our lives and possibly our families' lives forever? And if the only downside is we would get a no, go and make that request. You know, call someone and say, hey, I have an unreasonable request. They're gonna be like, what does that mean? I'm about to show you what it means, you know? And
that's what's great about having a network. I'm gonna jump with you there, a layer on that. Like having a network and having a group or a circle, right? Like leadership circle. Like there's anybody, we are 6 degrees separated from 6 degrees separation. We all know somebody that knows somebody that does whatever it is you might be looking for. So whether it might be your knee, or whether it might be your recipe, or whether it might be this, it's like we all know somebody that knows somebody. And if we don't open our mouth, then all we're doing is, again, locking up that flow from occurring. And of course the answers are out there. You got to be willing to ask. You got to be willing to receive. And I think what's beautiful too is just in like the leadership circle and how we've grown in such a way to, I don't know, whatever the number is now, it's 500-600 or whatever it is. And of course, we're scratching the surface, but as that gets bigger, we are all here to support. JR and Deana and I were talking last week. We're all in alignment and agreement. Like, this is not ours. This is not ours. This is ours to share. And if we can be of service and offer support to anybody live watching this replay, whoever, whether we're directly in contact with you or friends with you, anybody that's Deana's friend or family's my friends or family, and anybody that's JR's friends and families whom I consider friends and family. And so we're all here to support one another and grow. But we're literally just one question or one piece of support away from whatever it is that we need or want, you know?
One of the things, yes, Matt, thank you for sharing that. I feel the same way, is that it is all a family. Like, it's beautiful that way, and being able to provide that support. And one of the things JR always says, I just always hear it in my head, it's like, it doesn't have to be hard. It's meant to be easy. Like, that's the solution. That's the answer, right? So in a lot of things where it's like, okay, this is what we want, this is what we want, or this is what I need help with, it's like, it's meant to be easy. So maybe the question is like, okay, what would make it easy? And what piece of the puzzle, if I had access to it, or if I saw it, would then change, and just all the other pieces would fall into place. So, and without putting pressure on it being one specific question, you know, it's just, let's start with a question that may lead to another question. But questions are a gift because they open up possibilities. And so getting in the habit of asking more questions.
Yeah. And if you're like a painter and, you know, you were to call your favorite painter and be like, hey man, I'm a painter, I love your work, can you give me some advice? I know if I called one of the top construction guys and been like, hey, can you teach me something? You know, they would want to teach. People want to share their knowledge. And, you know, again, find someone who knows more than you in your area of interest and ask them some questions so that way you can get better at whatever you love.
Solid. So we're going to take that into our week and be make it a conscious daily habit of asking for support. Yeah, that's what we've agreed to here, and we encourage you, the audience, whoever might be watching this, is to ask. If that's one of us, or if that's somebody that is in your circle, or it could be a complete stranger. Open your heart, open your mouth, and receive whatever it is that it is you're asking for. So it's always great to be in the circle with the both of you. I just want to say thank you again to the both of you, and to everybody watching live or on replay. It's always great to be here. I'm going to pass it over to you two for closure, and look forward to seeing you guys again next week.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. JR, go for it.
Be the change you want to see in the world. Have a wonderful week. Aloha.
Aloha.
All right, cool. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So this is the Leadership Circle. We got daylight savings coming up here in the next few weeks. And so we will make sure that everybody is clear on the time that we're going to be doing this. So we want to make sure that y'all set your clocks back or forward. That's not for another couple of weeks, but you can count on us every Tuesday to be here. And the circle continues to expand. We look forward to bringing more people on board. We look forward to sharing more with you. Peace, be love, be light, be aloha, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Peace.